This is Death by Borrowed Gods, a hilarious feel-good, cozy mystery, Island Whodunit Book 23. Written by Tess Marlowe and narrated by Sarah.
Hi, Tess Marlowe here. Before Chapter 1 begins, please take 1 second to look at your screen and hit subscribe. It helps me bring you more free cozy mysteries.
Chapter 1. Well, Reg announced, raising his glass, we survived Christmas. We survived Valentine's. We are officially in the blessed dead zone. Don't jinx it. It's been a never-ending circus for the last 6 months. Lucienne groaned. I still want to see the peace and quiet I was promised when I transferred here. I wouldn't count on that, Alex laughed. Reg took a sip of his drink. I don't know about you all, but I'm enjoying the peace. It's been quiet. No crowds, no tourist vans, no one asking me if the island has sharks that only bite foreigners. It was one guy, Reg, Alex said. Let it go. Reg waved her off. Point stands. Don't get used to it. Shannon sat up straighter, suddenly looking far too energized. It's all temporary. Reg groaned. Shannon, why? Because, she said, drawing it out, Otto Delmar managed to secure a massive Incan exhibition from Peru. It's going to be huge. Press, academics, tourists, cultured people everywhere. Reg blinked at her. How in the world did our tiny museum pull that off? Oh, Otto fought the city council for, like, a year, Shannon said. They finally gave in and funded the reconstruction. New showcases, a new security system, a new ventilation system. Apparently the humidity regulation is so precise you could store a mummified hummingbird in there and it would stay perfect. Why would you mummify a hummingbird? Gary asked. I don't know, Gary. I was making a point. Poor bird, Polly screeched. Alex leaned over her glass. When's the opening? In 2 days, Shannon said proudly. And yes, before you ask, I'm taking my art students. This is a big deal for the island. We've never hosted anything with this level of cultural importance. Otto deserves the win. Rafa made a quiet, approving sound. It is impressive and rare. Not many places get traveling exhibitions like that, especially not tiny islands. Hey, Reg said. We're not tiny. We're sample-sized. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Lucienne tapped his beer bottle against his knee. Police are already on alert. We've escorted the cargo from the airport to the museum. Security detail all week. Coast Guard's involved too. Everyone's fussing like it's the crown jewels. Alex smirked. Mendoza must be thrilled. You know how she gets when the brass asks her to be on security detail if full uniform. Lucienne rolled his eyes. I try to avoid her at all costs these last couple of days. Security detail is beneath her spiritual calling, Gary said solemnly. She's a homicide goddess, not a crate nanny. Bombay wuffed from under the table. He too preferred high-stakes operations to security detail. Yeah, babysitting a museum is definitely not Angie's thing. Rafa laughed and set down his drink. Incan exhibitions are no joke, though. Their material culture is extraordinary. Goldwork, ceramics, textiles. And their mythology is fascinating. He paused and looked at Bombay. Did you know that many Andean cultures believed in a big black dog that guided souls through the afterlife? Sometimes gentle, sometimes terrifying, depending on how you lived. Bombay looked up and tilted his head to one side. Reg raised an eyebrow. Great, perfect bedtime topic. Alex reached down and scratched Bombay's neck. You hear that? You're a psychopomp now. Bombay wagged his tail once, rested his head on Alex's foot, and sighed. Gary perked up. Speaking of mythology, have you guys heard the conspiracy about the Incan artifact that was split into pieces? They say if someone puts it back together, you either get infinite power or a map to hidden treasure. Depends on who you ask. Shannon closed her eyes. Gary. No, seriously, he insisted. Look it up. People think museums worldwide are hiding the fragments. That's because museums worldwide are hiding all kinds of things, Rafa said mildly. Nothing mystical, just questionably legal. Gary shook his head. You're not listening. Everything ancient is supernatural. You think they built all those pyramids and stuff without help? He gestured upward. I worked at the UFO museum for almost 5 years. I know the truth. Reg snorted. In 2,000 years, people will dig up our blenders and toasters and say the same thing. Ancient humans didn't have the technology to produce something this smooth. Must be aliens. No offense, Gary, but people assign mystery to anything they don't understand. I understand blenders, Gary said, which is why they're not mysterious. Shannon pointed at him. Exactly. You understand blenders because you've used one. You haven't used an inconceremonial object from the 15th century. I would if museums let me, Gary muttered. Lucien laughed. Please do not touch anything at the exhibition. Mendoza will arrest you on general principle. Alex raised her glass. We should all go to the opening. Otto worked himself half dead getting this thing. He's such a good guy, Shannon said. If anyone deserves a crowd of excited islanders, it's him. I'll go, Lucien said, partly for Otto, mostly because I'm on security detail too. What are you going to guard? Reg snorted. The cash register at the gift shop? Rafa looked thoughtful. Honestly, I'd like to see it. The craftsmanship alone. Shannon grinned. See, everyone here has taste except Reg. Hey, Reg said. I have taste. I just prefer my artifacts without long lectures and crowds. In and out in 10 minutes. Also, I heard there will be free canapés, Gary said. There it is, Reg said. You should have led with that. Rafa laughed under his breath. Everyone needs the right motivation. The evening wound down in that slow island way, conversations drifting into shorter threads. Someone put on music at a low volume. A warm breeze came off the water, carrying the scent of salt and night-blooming jasmine. Polly repeated half the conversation back at them in fractured bits, sounding like a gossipy pensioner. Reg leaned back in his chair and looked at the people around him. Alex tucked against his shoulder, Shannon talking animatedly with Rafa about her students, Lucien throwing a chew toy for Bombay to chase, Gary trying to get Polly to say, ancient aliens. Alex nudged him lightly. What's that look? Nothing, Reg said, just appreciating the quiet before Gary summons a curse by accident. Gary placed a hand over his heart. I would never. Gary, you absolutely would. Chapter 2. Reg woke to the sound of his phone buzzing on the nightstand. He blinked at the screen. Otto Delmar. 5 a.m. That alone was enough to make him fully wake up. He answered before the second buzz finished. Otto? Oh, Reginald, I'm so sorry. Good morning. I mean, not good, really. I shouldn't be calling like this. Otto's voice came in uneven bursts, higher than usual, as if he were trying and failing to control it. Reg sat up. Otto? What happened? There's a situation at the museum. A rather serious one. It's not something I can explain on the phone. A shaky breath. I need you and Alex. If it's not too much trouble, come as soon as possible. Otto, Reg softened his tone. Just tell me if someone's hurt. A pause. There's a body. Reg swung his legs out of bed. Why didn't you call Mendoza? I can't. Otto's voice cracked. Please, I'll explain everything when you get here. I can't involve the police. Reg rubbed his face. We're on our way. He hung up and stared at the wall for a second, letting the words settle. A body. In the museum. Otto refusing to call the police. None of it made sense. Beside him, Alex stirred. Who was that? Otto. She sat up and checked the time. At 5 a.m.? Yeah, he's at the museum. Said he needs our help. Reg reached for his t-shirt. There's a body? A body in the museum? Apparently. Why did he call you not Mendoza? I have no clue. Reg picked up his shorts from the chair. He sounded panicked, said he couldn't call the police and he'll explain why when we get there. That's not comforting. Alex pushed back the covers and reached for her robe. But if Otto says he needs us, we should go. He helped us plenty of times. Exactly, Reg said, searching for his left flip-flop. Bombay trotted in from the hallway, tail wagging tentatively, as if checking whether this was the kind of morning that involved breakfast or chaos, and tilted his head at the sight of his parents half-dressed. "Yeah, buddy," Reg said. "Early shift." As they headed out the door, Alex tightened her ponytail and frowned. What could possibly make Otto think the police can't be involved? He's the most by-the-book man on the island. We'll know soon enough. Otto was waiting just inside the doors, arms wrapped around himself as if holding his own ribs in place. His hair stuck up on one side, and he'd put his name badge on upside down. The man looked like he'd been pacing for 2 hours. "Oh, thank you. Thank you both for coming," he said, pushing his glasses up with trembling fingers. Well, let me just—" "Slow down," Reg said gently. "We're here. What's going on?" Otto opened his mouth, closed it, and tried again. "There's been a malfunction with the ventilation system, or, no, the system worked correctly, actually. That's part of the issue." He let out a strangled sound of frustration. "The humidity alarms went off around 3 in the morning, so naturally I came to check. Well, I called the ventilation company first because the new system is extremely sensitive, and I thought perhaps—" "Otto," Alex said, "take a breath." Otto nodded, swallowed hard, and tried again. The technicians arrived and began inspecting the ducts, all routine, until they reached one of the main shafts, and something was lodged inside, something large, and when they opened it, his voice dropped. It was a person. Alex's hand found Reggie's arm. "Dead?" Reg asked quietly. Otto nodded quickly, eyes wide and distressed. Yes, quite dead. The technicians were horrified. One of them nearly fainted. I didn't handle it much better. I've never seen anything like—" He broke off, pressing a hand to his forehead. "This cannot happen now, not with the exhibition opening tomorrow. If the council or the press or, God forbid, the Museo Larco hears about this, the exhibition will be pulled, cancelled, and after that no one will ever trust San Malvino with a major cultural loan again, not in my lifetime, not in anyone's." Alex stepped closer. "Otto, take a moment. We'll figure it out. But you understand we can't just ignore a dead person." I know," Otto said miserably. "But the technicians, they're locals, reasonable men. Perhaps there's a way to handle their report delicately." Reg exhaled slowly. "I'll talk to them. But that still leaves the actual body. We need Mendoza, and the coroner." Otto winced, like Reg had suggested summoning a demon. "Detective Mendoza terrifies me." "She terrifies everyone," Reg said, "but she'll do her job." Alex touched Otto's shoulder. "Let me call her. I'll explain everything calmly. She's a very reasonable woman, on most days." She pulled out her phone. "You two go find the ventilation guys. I'll talk to her." She stepped aside, pacing slowly as she dialed. Mendoza answered on the second ring. "Hey, Alex, why are you calling at 5:20 a.m.? Who died?" "I don't know yet." "What do you mean? Make it fast. I'm cooling down from my workout." Alex hesitated. "You need to come to the museum right now." "Just so you know," Mendoza said sharply, "if this is some kind of private preview of the Incan exhibition that you're trying to lure me into, I am not speaking to you for a month." "Well?" Reg asked. "She thinks I'm trying to sneak her into an early tour," Alex said. "She said she'd exile me socially if that is the case." Otto looked genuinely wounded. "Why would anyone think that? This is hardly the time for privileged previews." Reg patted his shoulder. "Relax. She'll be here in 5 minutes. As Alex says, that's how Angela communicates affection, with threats." Otto didn't look convinced. He led them down the hallway toward a room marked Systems Access, Authorized Personnel Only. 2 men in navy blue coveralls sat on crates inside. Both looked like they'd aged 10 years since arriving. Both jumped to their feet the second they entered. "We didn't touch anything else." Reg held up a hand. "Nobody's blaming you." The other nodded vigorously. "We've never found a body in a vent before," he said. "Frogs, sure. An iguana once, but Let's not finish that sentence, Alex said gently. Otto clasped his hands and gave Reg a look. These gentlemen were very professional. We're going to need you to freeze whatever documentation you were planning. No reports, no emails, no texts, no forwarding photos to anyone. Understood? Yes, sir, they said together. Reg softened his tone. You are not in any trouble. Yet. The situation is complicated, and we need to get the police involved the right way. You're covered. We'll handle it from here. The men looked visibly relieved. One wiped his forehead. Can we go home? You can, Reg said, but don't talk to anyone about what happened or you'll violate the non-disclosure agreement between your employer and the museum. Otto rounded his eyes on Reg, then caught up and nodded with a somber face. We won't talk to anyone, I swear, the younger one said. I can't risk losing this job. They gathered their tools and laptops and scurried away. Alex smiled at her husband. Nice save with the NDA. I communicate my affection with threats too, Reg laughed. Before Otto could respond, the museum doors opened and slammed shut hard enough to echo down the hallway. A familiar voice followed the echo. If anyone starts a sentence with, I know this looks bad, I'm leaving. Alex folded her arms. Well, she made good time. Mendoza appeared a moment later. What do we have? Alex pointed toward the systems room. There's a body. Mendoza blinked. Once, twice. A what? A body, Reg repeated. Mendoza stared at him. In the museum? Yes. At 5:45 in the morning? She checked her watch. Correct. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Where did you find him? In the ventilation shaft. Lovely. Let's go take a look. Chapter 3. Mendoza kneeled by the body, lifted the sheet Otto had covered it with, nodded, then looked back at Otto. Start from the top. Otto gulped. Well, the humidity alarm went off at 3. I called the ventilation company because the new system is very delicate and I didn't want to… Otto, Reg said gently, just tell her about the vent. Yes, right. The system detected some kind of blockage in the main shaft. When the ventilation guys opened it up, there was a body. Mendoza turned to Reg. I bet you already tampered with the witnesses? I didn't tamper with anyone, Reg said. I just motivated them not to write a report until we understand what we're looking at. Mendoza pinched the bridge of her nose. You know there's an entire crime lab built around the idea that things should be documented, right? There's also an entire international museum board that will pull the exhibit in 10 seconds if anyone files the word corpse, Reg said. One crisis at a time. Otto made a strangled noise. Detective, I promise, this wasn't an attempt to hide anything from you. I simply needed help to manage the situation before it escalates beyond repair. Relax, Mendoza said. You're not obstructing. Yet. He didn't relax. Alex stepped in. He's scared the insurance people will pull the exhibition if they think there were security breaches. And he's probably right, Mendoza muttered. But I can't investigate a man stuck in a vent based on emotional preferences. She turned back to Reg. I need to know how he got into the shaft, and whether he was alive when he got there or shoved in after death. Otto paled. Shoved. Oh dear Lord. Otto, these are basic questions. She gave him a stern look. And only one man on the island who can professionally answer them. Are you going to call Crane at 6 in the morning? Alex asked suspiciously. Do I look crazy to you? She pulled out her phone and dialed. Lucienne, get up. A muffled groan came through. What time is it? 5:43. Another groan. Why are you punishing me? Because there's a body that came out of the museum ventilation system and I need you to check the security cameras before Otto has 7 strokes. Get here, Stat, and call Crane while you're at it. There was a beat of silence. Why am I being punished for someone else crawling into a vent? Elliot's going to rip me in half for calling him this early. Less moaning, more moving. Copy that, boss. Otto let out a weak sigh. If we request footage from the security firm, they will definitely notify Museo Larco. We're not asking for footage, Mendoza cut his train of thought. We have Lucien for those kinds of things. He should be here any minute. Assuming he didn't fall asleep brushing his teeth, Reg said. A few minutes later, Lucien walked through the main entrance and yawned. Okay, he said thickly. Who died in a vent and why? That's for you to find out, Mendoza said. Start with the cameras. Lucien dropped into a folding chair, opened his laptop. I assume we don't have time for official requests? What's the name of the security firm? Grupo Salvaguarda Patrimonial. Lucien started typing. Their network is not very secure for a security firm. The camera footage is loading. Give me 5 minutes. They were still waiting for the footage to load when the museum doors banged open again. Where's the body? Elliot Crane asked no one in particular. Otto blanched. Coroner Crane, thank you so much for coming. I didn't come for you, Elliot said, brushing past him. I came because someone, he pointed accusingly at Lucien, woke me up with the sentence body in a vent. I could have gone my whole career without hearing that, but here we are. Mendoza ignored him. Service room's back here. No visible trauma from this position, no blood on the vent walls, no drag marks. If he was placed here after death, someone did it with the precision of a crane operator. More likely, he crawled in while alive. Otto whimpered. Why would anyone crawl into a vent? That's not my department, Elliot said. He pulled his head back and stripped off his gloves. Vent diameter is around, he gestured vaguely, this wide. A tight squeeze. Once you get stuck, oxygen drops fast. Panic sets in even faster. My early call? Asphyxiation due to confinement. Alex nodded slowly. He suffocated. Yes, Elliot said. That's the common word for it. Otto pressed a hand to his chest. How awful! Elliot snapped off another glove. I'll know more after the autopsy, but I doubt anything will contradict it. No signs of strangulation, no defensive wounds I can see from here. He simply got wedged in the vent. Fingerprint him as soon as you can and get me photos. We need to make an ID. Elliot nodded. I'll file him under Juan Doe for now. Lucien cleared his throat from the folding chair. Security footage is up. Mendoza straightened. Finally, what do we have? Lucien angled the screen so they could all see. Roof camera. Timestamp 12:40 a.m. A grainy figure climbed onto the rooftop, moving quickly. Otto gasped softly. Who is that? No visible face, Lucien said. He keeps his head down. The footage jumped as Lucien switched angles. Here, north service vent. He opens the grate with a screwdriver, no hesitation, crawls in on his hands and knees. He was alone, Mendoza said. Yes, Lucien replied. No one followed. No one helped. He wasn't chased. He wasn't pushed. He climbed into that vent entirely under his own steam. And that's it? Reg asked. That's it, Lucien said. No other entries. No one else on the cameras. Doors locked. Windows locked. Motion sensors clean. A silence fell over the group. Alex stepped closer to the screen. So, if this was not a homicide, what was it? I suspect this was a failed heist. Chapter 4. Otto had been pacing ever since Lucien shut his laptop. Every few steps he made a soft, distressed sound, like he was leaking panic in controlled puffs. Finally, he stopped, turned toward Mendoza, and blurted, Are you saying that this man planned to steal the Incan artifacts? We can't prove it, since he never reached the museum halls, but that's my take, she said. And unless Elliot finds something unusual, this is still an accidental death. If his autopsy confirms suffocation, I don't even have to write a report. Coroner's findings will be enough. Otto blinked. No report? No criminal case, Mendoza said. No crime, no paperwork. Trust me, I'm as grateful as you are. Otto leaned against the nearest wall, as if his legs couldn't support him anymore. This is a relief. A tremendous relief. Alex gave him a reassuring pat. You did everything you could. But Otto didn't look relieved for long. His fingers tightened around the edge of a display case. There's still 2 days till the opening. What if he wasn't acting alone? What if someone else tries to enter the museum? Properly this time, and succeeds. What if... Mendoza sighed. Look, we're not ignoring your concerns. You want extra eyes on the museum? Fine. You can have Lucien for any digital locks, feeds, or security checks you need. He'll babysit your systems. Babysit? Lucien muttered. Thanks. And, Mendoza continued, this is actually better suited for someone experienced in the organized crime lane than homicide. Reg raised an eyebrow. You're talking about Rafa? Yes, Mendoza said. This is the perfect case for him. Reg couldn't resist. He helped Mrs. Belvedere find her umbrella 3 days in a row. She keeps leaving it in different spots around the compound and decides it's stolen every time. Alex snorted. He also helped Lisa track down Captain Waffles, who keeps escaping through the fence. I think he rearranged the furniture in his unit like 5 times this week, Lucien said. He's bored out of his mind. Otto looked between them. I'm sorry, who is Rafa? A private investigator, Alex explained. A former organized crime detective from Havana. Mendoza nodded. Also, he's my first partner and I trust him. Otto straightened a little, hope creeping into his expression. And you think he might take this on? Reg gave a short laugh. He'll be more than willing. I do have a small remaining budget from the renovation grant, perhaps enough for a short-term consultant, just until we understand whether this man was acting alone. There you go, Mendoza said, pleased. Perfect match. Rafa gets something interesting, you get peace of mind, and I get to avoid running surveillance on a museum for 2 days. Reg chuckled. Mutual benefit. Mendoza pulled out her phone and dialed. Rafa picked up on the 4th ring, sounding exactly like someone who'd fallen asleep on his face. Hey, Angie, what's up? Mendoza didn't bother with pleasantries. Get up, get dressed, get to the San Malvino Historical Museum on the main square. Is there a reason? Rafa asked, voice thick with sleep, or are you dragging me to a cultural event against my will? There's a case, Mendoza said. A real one. Well, potentially real. It's complicated. Silence, then a sharp rustling noise, like he'd shot upright. A case? Yes. I'm on my way. Mendoza hung up, satisfied. See? Easy. That was fast, Alex said. He's been complaining for a month that the island is too peaceful, Mendoza replied. Now he gets to investigate a dead man in a vent? Otto made a small, despairing noise. Please don't phrase it that way. Mendoza softened, slightly. Otto, listen. You did the right thing calling Reg and Alex, and no matter what happens now, the worst is already over. The body is accounted for. The cause of death isn't violent. The exhibit will proceed unless something new comes up. Otto nodded, though he still looked like he might combust. Thank you, Detective. Lucien closed his laptop. I'll keep monitoring the feeds until Rafa gets here. If anyone tries to take the scenic route into the HVAC again, I'll see it. Reg gave Otto a reassuring smile. You're in good hands. Rafa will take it seriously. Otto exhaled, shoulders finally lowering an inch. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm starting to believe this might not ruin us after all. Mendoza sighed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're back in business, baby. Mendoza winced. Fantastic. Rafa decided to bring reinforcements. A moment later, Gary came barreling into the lobby, Polly swaying on his shoulder, looking very satisfied with himself. Rafa followed behind, hair windblown, shirt half-buttoned, and looking far more awake than any human summoned before sunrise should. Morning, Gary announced. Who died? Mendoza stared at Rafa. You brought Gary, and the bird, for your first real case. Rafa shrugged, cheerful. He promised to be very helpful, and Polly refused to stay home. Polly bobbed his head proudly. I have rights, Mendoza groaned. Please tell me you didn't take his golf cart? Rafa grinned. Nope, I bought a moped. Gary lit up. It's red and very fast. Gary screamed. I was windblown. Gary protested. Reg leaned toward Alex. This is going to be a long day. Otto hurried over, smoothing his shirt. Hello, yes, welcome. Thank you for coming so quickly, Mr. Cardenas. Just Rafa said warmly, offering his hand. You must be Otto Delmar. Otto shook his hand with both of his, grateful and frazzled. Yes, thank you for agreeing to help. Well, the situation is strange, Rafa supplied. Horrifying, Otto corrected, and unprecedented, and potentially ruinous, and… Okay, Mendoza cut in. Before Otto spirals again, let's get Rafa up to speed. She gave the rundown efficiently. Humidity alarm, vent technicians, blocked shaft, unidentified man, asphyxiation likely, no sign of homicide, camera footage showing a lone intruder entering through the roof at 12:40 a.m. Rafa listened intently, arms crossed, expression sharpening with every new detail. When she finished, he nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. This smells like artifact theft. Amateur route, but the intent is there. Otto let out a tiny gasp. You mean he really was trying to steal something? Can't say for sure yet. Rafa glanced toward the gallery halls. But people don't risk their lives to admire ancient relics. Polly screeched, Heist! 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 Rafa ignored him. Before I start, Otto, I need a list of every artifact delivered for the exhibition. Pictures if you have them. First, we need to determine what they could have been after. Oh, I can do better than that. I can show you everything in person. We received the final shipment yesterday afternoon. They're staged in Gallery 2. I can walk you through the historical context, provenance, significance. Here we go, Reg muttered. Gary perked up. Can I go too? I want to be Rafa's apprentice. I can carry things, provide helpful commentary, take notes, do coffee runs. Rafa considered Gary, who was practically vibrating with enthusiasm. Sure. Everyone needs an apprentice. Gary whispered loudly to Polly, I'm in. Polly puffed up. We demand badges. Otto clapped his hands nervously. Well, if you're ready, we can begin with the ceremonial ceramics, or perhaps you'd prefer to start with the textiles. They're remarkably preserved, and there's a gold ritual piece believed to be… Otto, Mendoza said gently, not all of us need the extended tour. He blinked. Oh, of course, I didn't mean to overwhelm. No, Alex said kindly. Rafa needs it. Gary wants it. You absolutely should show them everything. Gary nodded vigorously. Absolutely. I want the full academic experience. Full experience, Polly echoed. Rafa smiled. Lead the way. Otto brightened for the first time since dawn. Right this way. As they left down the gallery corridor, Rafa shot Reg a quick grin over his shoulder, as if to say finally, something interesting. Gary followed, almost skipping. Polly added dramatic commentary every second step. Alex looked at Mendoza and Reg. I guess you two are not staying? I'm a homicide detective, Mendoza said, shrugging. Not my crime scene, not my clowns. And I'm not even a cop. See you at home, darling. Chapter 5. Shannon rushed into the museum with 2 trays of takeout coffee. What did I miss? Aside from the body? Nothing much. Lucien shrugged and took one of the coffees. We're just starting. The first stop was a long glass case filled with ceremonial ceramics. Bowls, jars, flasks, each decorated with impossibly intricate geometric designs. Otto spread his hands. These date between the late intermediate and the late horizon periods. Look at the line work, not a single slip. Shannon leaned close to the glass. This is ridiculous, she murmured. I couldn't replicate that with rulers, a laser level, and 3 days of uninterrupted silence. Rafa nodded appreciatively. They carved freehand. Gary gasped. Like, with a knife? Or a sharpened stone, Otto said. Shannon shook her head. I can't even paint a circle that doesn't look like it's had a stroke. Polly screeched. Art is pain! Gary patted him. You're doing great, buddy. They moved on to a display of gold-colored artifacts, bracelets, discs, a ceremonial mask whose eyes gleamed under the soft museum lights. Gary froze with an open mouth. Okay, now this is what someone would break into a museum for. Rafa and Otto exchanged a look of academic horror. It's not gold, Rafa said. Gary blinked. What do you mean it's not gold? It's shiny. It's yellow. Shiny and yellow equals gold. Otto clasped his hands. Gary, the Spanish made the same assumption. It's an alloy called tumbaga, gold mixed with copper and sometimes silver. More durable, easier to work with. Much less valuable if you're thinking melt down and get rich. Gary stared at the mask, betrayed. So it's fake? Shannon gave him a sympathetic pat. Not fake. More impressive. They did all this with fewer resources than you use to reheat leftovers. Rafa tapped the glass lightly. This piece alone would have taken weeks of work. Someone after money wouldn't know the difference. Someone after legends wouldn't care. Legends! Polly screamed. Otto brightened. Speaking of legends, have any of you heard of the Gate of the Gods or Aramu Muru? Gary perked up. Is it cursed? No, Otto said patiently. Well, not officially. But there's a myth that a stone portal in southern Peru hides a passage to another world, and that a golden key, sometimes described as a sun disk, opens it. Rafa stepped in smoothly, except no such key has ever been proven to exist. But some people believe pieces of ritual artifacts can be assembled to mimic it, or that certain carvings contain encoded maps. Gary's eyes widened to an impossible diameter. We're dealing with treasure hunters. Alex raised a brow. Or people with very active imaginations. Or both, Shannon said. Polly flapped his wings. Open the portal. There are no portals, Otto said and patted Polly on his head. Rafa grinned. What about the city of Paititi? Lost jungle civilization. Walls of gold. Half the internet's convinced it's still out there. Otto nodded. Indeed. Some fringe theorists claim small ritual items, copper bells, carved totems, contain geographical hints. But of course no one has confirmed anything. Gary turned to Alex. How do you jailbreak a totem? Asking for research. Alex gave him a look. You don't. He nodded solemnly. Right. Rafa walked to the next case and folded his arms, studying the objects with a thoughtful frown. The thing is, this exhibition could attract anyone, from gold chasers to believers in lost cities, to cultural activists. Otto paled. So you think someone was after the Incan exhibits? I'm pretty sure, Rafa confirmed. You didn't have any break-in attempts before, did you? Not in last 7 years that I've been the curator here. The group went quiet for a moment. Then Alex broke the silence. I have a question. Were the renovation details ever made public? Oh no, Otto said quickly. Not at all. The upgrades were so new that only Museo Larco and the city council received the full specs, and only the council members with the cultural oversight portfolios actually read them, I suspect. Rafa snorted. So, 2 people? Possibly 1, Otto admitted. Alex nodded. Then maybe whoever climbed into that vent didn't realize the system had changed. The outside of the building looks exactly the same. If he had old blueprints or outdated information, he might have expected wider ducts and safer passage, which means he wasn't local, or he wasn't updated, or both. Rafa rubbed his jaw, thinking. This wouldn't be the first time amateurs tried something like this. In 1985, 2 veterinary students broke into the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, Christmas Eve. No grand conspiracy, no black market mastermind, just 2 guys who thought they'd pull off a cinematic treasure raid. Gary leaned in. Did they? They got in, Rafa said. Walked out with over 100 pre-Columbian artifacts. Jade masks, gold pieces, ritual objects. They didn't even have a buyer lined up. They just assumed value equaled fortune. Shannon winced. Please tell me that didn't end well. It didn't, Rafa said simply. They hid the artifacts under a waterbed. Couldn't sell them, couldn't display them, couldn't melt them without destroying the historical value. Eventually, most of it was recovered. Otto exhaled slowly. I remember reading about it. Rafa nodded. The point is, it wasn't professionals. It was curiosity, ego, and a very bad plan. People see gold or legends and assume they've discovered a shortcut to destiny. Gary looked at the Tumbaga mask again. So you're saying our ventilation enthusiast might have been overconfident? I'm saying, Rafa replied, this doesn't look very well planned. Polly chimed in helpfully. People are dumb. Chapter 6. Lucian slipped back into the gallery so quietly that Otto startled, clutching a clipboard to his chest. I've got something, Lucien said, already waking up his laptop as he walked. And by something I mean an identity, and a whole lot of questions. Rafa straightened from where he'd been studying a display case, while Alex and Shannon moved closer. Gary trailed behind them, Polly perched on his shoulder like an overexcited field reporter. Lucien turned the screen toward the group. His name is Mateo Huaman, 27, Peruvian passport. Otto let out a shaky breath. Peruvian, he murmured, as though that alone answered something. So he was here for the artifacts. Maybe, Rafa said. Maybe not. Keep going, Lucien. Lucien swiped to another document. Mateo arrived 3 days ago as part of a cultural tour from Toronto. 20 travelers total, 15 Canadians, 5 Peruvians. Group visa paperwork, same guide, same hotel. Gary squinted. Okay, but why would Peruvians fly from Canada to see Peruvian artifacts on a Caribbean island instead of just going to Peru? A thoughtful silence settled over the hall. Shannon was the first to break it. That part is odd. Maybe they're expats who live in Canada now. But if the goal was to see heritage objects in person, wouldn't they just go home? Otto shook his head. People are coming from everywhere. Canada, the U.S., Mexico, Panama, cultural associations, university groups, private travel clubs. It's a major event for San Malvino. We trained our local guides for 3 days straight. There are perfectly normal explanations. Of course, Alex said gently, but Mateo's choice still stands out. All eyes slid to Rafa, who had gone quiet in the way he did when assembling pieces in his head. It could be innocent, he said. People move, families relocate. Immigration, study abroad, work visas. It's not unusual, but... He tapped the side of his thumb against his palm, thinking aloud. If someone didn't want to fly directly from Peru for a reason, joining a Canadian tour could be convenient. More anonymity, less scrutiny. Gary's eyebrows shot up. So like strategic tourism? Shannon rolled her eyes. Please don't call it that. Lucien cleared his throat. Before everyone spirals, the group listed a hotel, Seaside Colonial. The local guide is Yara Vargas. She checked in with them. Rafa nodded. Good. Then she's our starting point. A guide always notices when someone goes missing. Otto's anxiety flared again. Do you think the guide is involved? Not necessarily, Rafa said. Most tour guides spend half their day counting heads and reminding people where the bathrooms are, but she'll know who Mateo talked to, how he acted, whether anyone else in the group seemed out of sync. But how do we approach her or the group without startling them? The most obvious way would be a death notification. Lucien rolled his eyes and groaned. Oh, come on. By the time they stepped out of the museum, the sun was finally up. So how do you want to play this? Rafa exhaled through his nose. You've got a badge, don't you? Lucien blinked. Well, yes. Then we go together. You flash the badge, I do the talking. A private investigator showing up alone to break news like this only creates more suspicion. Lucien grimaced. I really hate this part. Believe me, there's not a single cop who remotely likes it, Rafa sighed. But it's part of the job. Gary cleared his throat loudly before they could head off. I'm going back to the compound with Alex and Shannon. I don't handle the sad stuff well. Polly bobbed his head in agreement. No sad stuff. Alex gave Rafa a quick, sympathetic look. You two keep us posted. Rafa nodded. We'll let you know if anything turns up. Otto leaned halfway out the museum doorway, wringing his hands. If there's any news at all, please tell me right away. Even if it's minor, anything helps." "We will," Lucien promised. The seaside colonial sat across from a row of palm trees and a stretch of blue water that sparkled in the sun. A tidy hotel with whitewashed balconies and ocean-facing windows, it was one of those mid-tier places that catered to tourists who wanted comfort without strain on the wallet. Inside, cool air and the low hum of soft music greeted them. The lobby smelled faintly of coconut-scented cleaning spray and guava juice. A few guests milled around, a couple scanning brochures, a family waiting for a shuttle van, someone yawning into a coffee. Rafa approached the front desk with the kind of quiet confidence that made receptionists automatically straighten up. She smiled politely. "Good morning. Welcome to Seaside Colonial. How can I help you?" Lucien showed his badge discreetly. "We're here about one of your tour groups, a Canadian group that arrived 3 days ago. We're looking specifically for the guests traveling on Peruvian passports." The receptionist's polite expression faltered. "Oh, the Canadians." She clicked into her computer, eyes narrowing slightly as she scrolled. "Yes, we have that group here. Or, well, their bookings anyway." Rafa leaned forward. "We need their room numbers." The young woman hesitated, glancing at the badge again as if reassuring herself she was allowed to share the information. "They did check in," she said slowly. "All 5 of the Peruvian guests. But what?" Rafa asked gently. "They aren't actually staying here. They arrived, completed the paperwork, took their room keys, and then left the property about an hour later with their suitcases." Lucien frowned. "They checked in and left the same night?" "Yes. We assumed they found another place to stay. We kept the rooms reserved in case they returned, but the beds haven't been slept in, and the keys were never used. Housekeeping didn't touch the rooms out of courtesy." Rafa exchanged a quick look with Lucien. "Did they say why they were leaving?" "No," the receptionist bit her lip. "Strange," Lucien muttered. "Extremely," Rafa agreed. The receptionist nodded toward a group of guests gathered in the lobby. "The rest of the Canadians are still here," she said. "Most of them, anyway. They're doing a day tour this morning." Lucien straightened. "Are any members of the group here right now?" "Yes." She pointed discreetly toward a woman standing by the far wall, a clipboard tucked under her arm. "That's their guide, actually. She's waiting for everyone to gather before they take a shuttle to the Botanical Center." Rafa followed her gesture. The guide was mid-30s, with the frazzled but professional look of someone who had spent several days wrangling tourists. She checked his watch twice in 10 seconds. "Thank you," Rafa said. "We'll speak to her." Chapter 7. The guide noticed them before they reached her, mostly because Lucien clipped his badge right to his collar, not to lose it again in too many pockets of his cargo pants. "Good morning," she said, offering a bright, efficient smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm Yara Vargas. Is there a problem? The hotel hasn't informed me of anything." Rafa gave a small nod. "We're hoping you can help us with some information about your group." "Oh!" Yara's shoulders loosened a fraction. "Of course. Did anyone got into trouble in the lobby bar? Those guys do drink a lot after dinner." She paused, waiting for the joke to land. It didn't. "We're here about 5 members of your group, 5 Peruvian nationals. They arrived for a cultural tour with you 3 days ago." Yara blinked. "Ah, yes, them." She shifted her weight slightly, clearly flipping through her internal registry of personalities. "The Peruvian booking. We need to confirm whether they've been participating in the tour and when have you seen them last." "Well," Yara said, adjusting her clipboard, "they haven't participated at all." Rafa exchanged a brief look with Lucien. "What do you mean?" "They told me at the airport they wouldn't be joining the cultural activities. Said they booked the package because it was cheaper than only the airfare ticket. It happens. Agencies buy out slots of seats on flights for a very cheap price. They usually make their money back while travelers overspend at their destination." Lucien frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "Believe me, it does," Yara said with a small, knowing nod. If you booked before the exhibition hype escalated, you'd get half the price. Agencies wanted early arrivals to fill the hotels during the low season, excursions, souvenirs. The packages that started 5 to 6 days before the opening were heavily discounted. The closer to the exhibition, the higher the price. Rafa lifted a brow. So it would make financial sense for someone to buy the tour and never actually take the tour. Yara gave a restrained shrug. Unfortunately, yes. I can't compel anyone to attend cultural programs. I can only provide the schedule. She glanced down at her clipboard. They informed me upon arrival that they had relatives on the island and would stay with them instead of the group hotel, collected their luggage and left. I haven't seen them since. They didn't specify what relatives or where do they live on the island, Rafa asked. No, not really. They didn't socialize much with the rest of the group. Lucian pressed his lips together. Did anything feel unusual about them? Yara considered that carefully. I guess they didn't behave like tourists on a vacation. Way too tense. Did anyone else ask about them? Rafa asked. A couple of guests from their group did. Mostly out of curiosity, I guess. I repeated what I'd been told. She studied them more closely now. Has something happened? Rafa didn't answer directly. We're still gathering information. A crease formed between Yara's brows. Should I be concerned? Not at this time, Rafa replied calmly. But we do need one more detail. When is their return flight? The entire group departs the evening of the exhibition opening. We conduct a final head count at 5 p.m., then transfer everyone to the airport. So if they don't join the group before then, Rafa said, they would still be expected at the airport. Correct. Guests can miss tours, but they always return for the outbound flight. No one wants to purchase a second ticket. Lucien nodded slowly. That gives us a window. Yara hesitated. Is there anything I can help you with? Not really, Rafa said gently and gave her his card. Just notify us if they contact you before the flight. I will, Yara smiled. Lucien thanked her, and they stepped away from the lobby traffic, pausing beside a tall planter of glossy palms. Rafa exhaled slowly. 5 travelers who checked in and disappeared. That's suspicious already. Lucien took a hand through his curls. They were never here for the tour. Rafa nodded. The question is whether Matteo was aligned with them, or in their way. Lucien straightened. We need to find the Peruvians and those local relatives. Assuming they even exist, Rafa sighed. By the time Rafa and Lucien made it back to Isla Lirio, the breakfast at Alex and Reggie's porch was at full swing. Bombay lifted his head the moment he saw them and wagged his tail. Well, Reg said, putting his mug down, that's the look of men who found absolutely nothing. Mendoza didn't bother looking up from her plate. She was halfway through a tall stack of pancakes. I am loving this dynamic, she said. For once, I'm the one eating carbs and feeling functional, while someone else arrives looking like they got kicked by an alpaca at 9 a.m. Rafa dropped into a chair. Close enough. Lucien sat beside him with the defeated posture of a man who'd been awake since before sunrise against his will. Alex slid 2 cups of coffee toward them. Shannon leaned forward. Okay, what happened? Did you find the rest of Peruvians? What did they say? Rafa scrubbed a hand down his face. What happened is nothing. The 5 Peruvians checked in, took their keys, walked out of the hotel with their suitcases, and never came back. The rooms haven't been touched. Gary choked on his pancakes. They checked in and checked out at the same time. Why would anyone do that? Because they had somewhere else to go, Lucien said. They told their tour guide they didn't want to join the cultural program. They just used the tour booking to get cheaper airfare. That's actually smart, Shannon said reluctantly. Annoying for the guide, but smart. Mendoza finally set down her fork. Let me get this straight. We have a dead man in a vent and his 4 travel buddies who vanished? Something like that, Rafa said. Did they let the guide know where are they planning to stay? Alex asked. Lucien shook his head. With some local relatives. The guide didn't get names. They just told her they were staying with family on the island. Gary frowned. Do we even have many Peruvian families on the island? Probably a few, Reg said. But unless someone is waving a Peruvian flag outside their house, we wouldn't know. And that's assuming relatives meant biological relatives. They could be friends, contacts, business partners, anyone. Mendoza snorted. For all we know, their relatives could be locals with German ancestry and a beach house in North Cove. I've had cases where my cousin turned out to be someone's roommate's dentist's ex-wife. Bombay sneezed under the table. "Thank you," Mendoza told him. "Exactly." Alex leaned her elbows on the table. "So what do? We can't just wander the island knocking on doors asking, 'Do you happen to be harboring 4 Peruvians?'" Shannon pointed her fork at her. "Though imagine the reactions." Reg shook his head. "Before we jump ahead, what about the Canadians? They flew in together. Maybe they overheard something." Rafa considered that for a moment. Possible. But the guide said the Peruvians didn't mingle at all. They booked together, moved together, left together. The Canadians probably know just as little as the guide. "Still," Alex said, "they might know something. People observe things without realizing they observed them." Rafa nodded. "And it's an option. But I don't think it gets us far." Lucien toyed with the hem of his t-shirt. "So what's our next move?" Reg didn't hesitate. "Cabbies." The whole table paused. Reg continued, calm and matter-of-fact. "They always hang out in front of hotels. They always hear what travelers are up to, and they're always happy to help. They've been some of our best sources before." Alex nodded slowly. "He's right. Also, they actually talk with the tourists during the ride." Lucien perked up a little. "Let's go back to the hotel and talk to the taxis lined up out front." "It's the best starting point," Rafa agreed. "Someone drove them from the hotel that night." Mendoza waved her fork dismissively. "Have fun." Everyone turned to her. "You're not coming?" Alex asked. "Nope." Mendoza took another bite of pancake with zero guilt. "For once in my life, I am going to finish my breakfast in peace, and then I will go to the station, review Elliot's notes, and maybe, if the universe really wants to spoil me, drink a second cup of coffee while sitting down and filling my reports in peace." Rafa lifted an eyebrow. "You're really sitting this one out?" "You're a private investigator now, Cardenas," she said, reaching for her syrup. "Go investigate." Rafa stood, pushing in his chair. "Fine, but if we unravel an international artifact conspiracy before noon, you owe me a drink." "I will buy you a whole bottle if you solve this before noon, which you will not if you keep wasting time talking to me. Go already." When everyone left, she sighed contentedly, picked up her mug, and said to no one in particular, "I should really do mornings like this more often." Chapter 8. By the time they reached the hotel again, the line of taxi drivers under the awning had doubled. Morning runs were winding down, and the heat hadn't yet reached the level where everyone retreated to shade. A few cabbies lounged against their cars, chatting, wiping windshields, or scrolling on their phones. Bombay padded along beside Reg, sniffing at every tire as if conducting his own inspection. Rafa stepped forward, holding Mateo's passport photo. "Morning," he greeted, raising his voice just enough to be heard. "We were wondering if any of you were on shift 3 nights ago. We're looking for a group of 5 travelers. One of them was this man." Most of the cabbies exchanged glances. One shook his head, another shrugged, a third pointed at the photo. "I didn't drive them," he said, "but I remember them waiting out here." Lucian lifted the picture. "You recognize him?" "Yeah," the cabbie said. "Him and 4 others, all tired-looking, all serious. They came out dragging these heavy suitcases. Like, ridiculously heavy. I even joked with them that they were smuggling rocks." He chuckled. "They did not laugh. Didn't seem like the relaxed tourist type." Another cabbie leaned farther out from his open window. "They didn't want 2 cars. We all tried telling them it'd be easier. 5 of them, 5 suitcases. 2 cabs would have done it. But nope. They kept insisting on a van. Said they wanted to stick together." "Like they were scared to split up," Gary said. "Or didn't want anyone overhearing," Reg added. A third cabbie snapped his fingers. "They waited about 40 minutes for Joaquin to show up. He's one of the van guys. He finally arrived, picked them up, and off they went. Rafa nodded. Do you know if anyone here heard where they were headed? You'll have to ask Joaquin. Do you know where Joaquin is now? Rafa asked. He's off today, one cabbie answered. His daughter's birthday, I think. But he'll help you. Good guy, super polite. Here. He pulled out his phone, scrolled for a moment, and then read off the number. You want his address too? He lives a couple streets behind Santa Marta Church. Lucien typed everything into his notes. This helps a lot. Thank you. Bombay sniffed at the cabbie's sandals, decided they weren't suspicious, and sat down with a heavy thump that earned him a few amused smiles. So they left with Joaquin, Rafa said, folding the passport photo. And none of you saw them come back here afterward? All the cabbies shook their heads. Nope. Never saw them again. I don't think they returned. One added, I'm telling you, man, they did not look like tourists. Thank you. Rafa pulled out his phone. Let's call Joaquin. The cabbies fell into a respectful hush as he dialed. The call connected on the third ring. Hello? A warm voice answered. This is Joaquin. Good morning, Rafa said. My name is Rafael Cardenas. I'm working with the local police on an inquiry. We were told you drove a group of 5 passengers from Seaside Colonial 3 nights ago? Oh, yes, I remember them, Joaquin said immediately. Strange group, but nice enough. We'd like to ask you a few questions, Rafa said. Would it be possible to come by your home? Of course, Joaquin sounded genuinely pleased to help. I'm not working today. I'll be here all morning. Come whenever you like. Thank you, Rafa said. We'll be there soon. He hung up. Well? Shannon asked. He's home, Rafa said. And cooperative. Let's go. Lucien tucked his phone away. Santa Marta Church is only 10 minutes from here. Joaquin lived in a tight cluster of houses pressed between the fisherman's wharf and a line of old sea grape trees that had probably been there since the first shack went up on the waterfront. The front gate was painted a cheerful turquoise, and the sound of children shrieking with laughter spilled out into the sandy walkway. As they approached, 3 barefoot kids ran past them, chasing a soccer ball with the kind of intensity normally reserved for national championships. Bombay trotted behind Reg, tail wagging, convinced each child was a potential new admirer. One of them paused long enough to scratch his ears before darting away again. Joaquin stepped out of his doorway the moment he saw them, wiping his hands on his shorts. He was in his early 60s, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face and a warm smile. Buenos dias, he said. You must be the ones who called. That's us, Rafa said. Thank you for making the time. Of course. Come in. He gestured them toward the open door. My wife's making coffee. Don't mind the mess. We have the grandkids today. Inside, the small living room was a controlled chaos of toys, crayons, a half-built puzzle, and a pile of beach towels drying on a chair. A woman in her 60s poked her head out from the kitchen and gave them a friendly wave before disappearing again to whatever magical coffee operation she was conducting. Sit, Joaquin said, pulling out chairs around a scarred wooden table. Now tell me, what's happened? You said this is about that group I drove from Seaside Colonial. Lucien cleared his throat and took out Mateo's photo. One of them was found dead early this morning. We need to notify the others, but we can't find where they're staying. Joaquin went still, his expression shifting from curiosity to sadness. Ay, Dios. Poor man. He looked so young. He was, Rafa said quietly. And that's why we're trying to piece together everything we can. You might be one of the last people who saw them together. Joaquin nodded, leaning back. What do you want to know? Whatever you noticed, Reg said. Anything at all? Joaquin scratched his chin. Well, they were a strange bunch. Very tense, he said. Usually people step out of the airport, smell the ocean, feel the sun, and poof, vacation mode. But these 5? No, they clutched their bags like someone was about to snatch them. Shannon exchanged a glance with Gary. Definitely not your average tourist behavior. No, Joaquin agreed. Not even close. They kept whispering to each other in a language I could not understand. How do you mean? Rafa asked. He folded his arms, brow furrowing. I've been driving tourists nearly 40 years. I've heard everything. Spanish in every accent, English in every accent, French, German, Portuguese. I can always catch enough to know what people want. He paused. But with them, I understood maybe 1 word out of 10. Lucian blinked. They didn't speak Spanish? They did, Joaquin said, waving that away. But not Spanish the way we speak it here. Not Spanish the way Cubans speak it, or Mexicans, or Colombians, or Venezuelans. Not even the Chileans with their fast mumbling. Reg leaned forward slightly. What did it sound like? Joaquin hesitated, searching for the right description. Then he huffed a little laugh. Like a train. Gary frowned. Train? Yes, Joaquin said. Lots of choo-choo sounds, soft endings, like the words were made of little breaths. I'd never heard anything like it. Bombay tilted his head as if considering this linguistic report very seriously. Rafa leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing with growing certainty. They weren't speaking only Spanish, he said. They were mixing it. Joaquin nodded. See? That's exactly how it felt, like 2 languages at once. Shannon tapped the table lightly. Mixed with what? Quechua. Lucian blinked. Quechua as in indigenous Peruvian Quechua? Yes, Rafa said, matter of fact. If their Spanish sounded clean but unfamiliar, with soft vowels and chew endings, that's Quechua influence. People who grow up speaking it fold it into their Spanish without noticing. Shannon's eyes widened. Wait, so these people are real Incas? Rafa sighed gently. No one is a real Inca. The empire collapsed hundreds of years ago, but descendants? Yes. Entire communities in the Andes speak a mix of Spanish and Quechua. Gary pointed a triumphant finger. Then I bet they came here to get their stuff back from the museum. Everyone turned to look at him. Gary lifted his hands defensively. What? I'm just saying, if my grandma's china set were displayed in some random museum behind glass, I'd be upset too. Rafa hid a smile behind his hand. Alex turned to him. Okay, but serious question. How the hell do you know Quechua? Rafa shrugged. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a nerd. Lucien snorted. Join the club. Rafa turned to Joaquin again. Do you remember where you dropped them off? Joaquin nodded immediately. Claro, the Cultural Heritage Building. They told me to stop right in front. But you can't live there, Alex said. It's workshops and offices. The Moko Jumbi kids rehearse there. Joaquin lifted his hands. All I know is they asked me to take them there. All 5 got out with their suitcases. The building was closed, so I figured someone was meeting them. I didn't ask. Rafa rose from his chair, offering his hand. This has been extremely helpful. Thank you. Any time, Joaquin said, shaking it warmly. I hope you find the rest before something else goes wrong. Chapter 9. Outside, the afternoon sun had grown brighter, heat shimmering over the waterfront. The group paused on the walkway, letting the sea breeze cut through the warmth. Reg was the first to break the silence. The Cultural Heritage Building, that's weird. Very weird, Shannon agreed. That building is cursed, Gary said. Evil building, Polly shrieked. Gary, I'm sure it's not that bad, Rafa said with a smile, then turned to the rest. Do you know anyone who works at that building? Alex nodded. Jace. He's the leader of the Moko Jumbi troupe. A very nice guy. I'm sure he'll help us. Could you call him? Sure. Alex took out her phone and dialed. Jace answered on the second ring. Alexandra. Hi. Didn't expect to hear from you. Hi, Jace. We're looking for a group of people who stopped by the Cultural Heritage Building a couple of nights ago. Maybe you've seen them. Send me a picture. I'll ask around, or better come by. Thank you, Jace. We'll be there in a bit. They drove back to the main square and parked by the museum. Vendors were already wheeling carts across the cobblestones. A woman arranged mango pyramids on a folding table. Bombay jumped out of Reggie's Jeep and trotted ahead of the group. Okay, Rafa said, gesturing around. Why are we back in the town square again? Reg jerked his chin toward a narrow side street sloping toward the glittering water. Because the Cultural Heritage House is just down there. Rafa followed the line of sight. Right, he murmured. So is it just me, or does anyone else find it weird that the place those Peruvians went is 1 block from the museum filled with artifacts they might have cared about? Shannon shrugged lightly. Old Town's compact. Everything sits on top of everything. Lucien kept walking, sneakers scuffing against the ground. But no, you're not wrong. It's interesting. Coincidences are just puzzles we haven't solved yet, Gary said with a serious look. At the end of the slope stood the Cultural Heritage House, doing its best to fight off humidity with a fresh coat of paint. Bombay barked once and bounded ahead to the arched double doorway. Inside, the familiar scent mix hit immediately. Hot glue, old wood, and something herbal and sweet. Hand-painted arrows pointed to different artisan rooms, mass carvers to the left, drum makers straight ahead, herbalists down the hall. A clear donation jar rattled as Lucien brushed past. Shannon inhaled deeply. God, I love this place. Smells like carnival season got bottled and let loose. Or like a craft store exploded, Gary said. A soft rhythm pulsed somewhere down the hallway, someone testing a drum. Another room glowed with candlelight. The next flickered under a harsh fluorescent glare. All right. Rafa looked around slowly. This is not what I pictured when you said cultural heritage. Yeah, Reg grunted. I'm not a big fae of this place. Before they could go further, a familiar figure emerged from the hallway, Jace Saint-Just. He looked a lot better compared to the last time they saw him. Morning, he said. You said you were looking for someone? We're looking for 5 people. They came in with suitcases 3 days ago. The cabbie who brought them here said this was their stop. Rafa stepped forward and showed him Mateo's photo. Here's one of them. Yes, I saw them, Jace nodded. Only I saw them yesterday morning, not 3 days ago. Did they speak to anyone? Lucien asked. Jace's gaze flicked toward the long hallway. They came for Don Ilario. That's our healer. Reg frowned. You have an in-house healer here? Yes. He rents the small room beside the storage corridor, Jace said. People come to him when they need counsel or remedies, or when their spirit feels unsettled. Rafa glanced down the hall. Did they ask for him specifically? No, but they waited outside his door for a long time, Jace said. I think he had a patient. Alex stepped closer. Did you hear them talking to him? I saw when he opened the door and let them in, Jace replied. I don't think they greeted each other in Spanish. Is Don Ilario local? Shannon asked. No, Jace said. He came from Peru many years ago. He does not speak much of his village. Gary's eyes went wide. So they weren't lying when they said they had relatives on the island. They meant Don Ilario. Family is family, Polly screeched. Reg glanced around. Can we talk to him? He is not here today, Jace said. Fridays he goes to the market, but I can show you his room. He never locks it. They followed him through the long hallway, past rooms spilling scents of tea, burning resin, clay dust, and wood polish. The Moko Jumbi practice room was empty, trousers draped over racks, stilts stacked neatly along the walls. Jace stopped at a small wooden door near the end of the corridor. The herbal scent was stronger here, layered and warm. All right, Rafa said. Let's see if our Peruvian friends left something behind. Chapter 10. The healer's room was barely large enough for a consultation table, a little stool, and a few shelves lined with jars. But somehow, crammed against the wall, stacked neatly in a row like obedient soldiers, were 5 large suitcases. Gary blinked at them. Okay. Unless Don Ilario sells used suitcases on the side, those are not supposed to be here. Alex crouched and looked at the airline tags. Toronto to San Malvino, Air Canada. Rafa snapped a photo of them. Let's see if Joaquin recognizes them. The cabbie picked up on the second ring. See. Joaquin, quick question, Rafa said. I sent you a picture just now. Are those the bags of the 5 people you drove? Hang on a second, I need to get my reading glasses. There were muffled steps on the other side of the line. Let's see. Yes, those are the same suitcases. I remember because I had to play a bit of Tetris to fit them all in my trunk. Right, Rafa murmured. Gracias, Joaquin. We're not opening these, right? Gary asked. What if there's an ancient curse inside or a mummy? Reg rolled his eyes. Relax, Gary, we're not. Let's get out of here. As they stepped out of Cultural Heritage House, Rafa's phone buzzed in his hand. He checked the screen. Unknown local number. He answered, Rafael Cardenas, speaking. A cheerful voice came over the line. Hi, this is Yara from Seaside Colonial, the tour guide? Rafa's brows rose. Right, how can I help? Just thought you should know, Yara chirped. Those Peruvian guests, the ones who ditched my whole tour, they showed up this morning to collect their exhibition opening tickets. Shannon sucked in a breath. Rafa kept his voice steady. They have tickets? Oh yeah, prepaid through the agency. They were super polite, didn't stay long, left right after I handed them the envelope. Rafa's gaze cut toward Reg. And what time is the opening? Tomorrow at 12, Yara said. Anyway, hope that helps. Bye. The call ended. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Gary whispered, They're going to try something at the opening. Shannon pressed her fingers to her temples. A protest? A stunt? They know crowds create chaos. Cameras everywhere. Lucian frowned. Or they think the artifacts will be unguarded during the speeches. People get sloppy during ceremonies. Whatever they're planning, they're running out of time, Reg sighed, and so are we. We can't let this explode at the exhibit, Rafa said. The moment it goes public, the world will paint them as thieves and San Malvino as a lawless island. We can't allow that. Shannon looked at him. So what do we do? Rafa slid his phone into his pocket. Let's find Don Ilario. Apparently he's the only one they trust. To market? Reg asked. To market. The waterfront market stretched ahead, colorful tents, smoke from food stalls, the hum of vendors shouting prices for mangoes and fish. Shannon shaded her eyes. How exactly are we finding one healer in all that chaos? If I know anything about healers, Alex said, he would be by the herb stalls. Reg smirked. Did you learn that in med school? You would be surprised. They found Don Ilario standing at a narrow stall draped with drying bundles of herbs, each tied in neat bunches that swayed slightly with the sea breeze. He wore a loose white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, fingers stained faintly green from years of handling different leaves. As soon as he saw them, he pasted on a smile that was just a little too bright. Ah, my friends, he announced. Out enjoying the market? Lovely day, good breeze. Rafa stepped forward. Don Ilario, Jace said we would find you here. Yes, he just called and told you are looking for me. We were wondering if you... I have not seen them, Don Ilario blurted. Lucien blinked. We didn't actually finish the question. The healer's smile twitched. Yes, well, you were going to ask about the young people, the tourists, clients of mine, nothing more. Haven't seen them in days. He waved a hand vaguely toward the sky. Young people, they come and go. You know how it is. Shannon gave him a flat look. Do all of you clients leave suitcases in your office? The smile dropped a millimeter. Suitcases? What suitcases? We saw them, Rafa said gently. Bombay stepped forward from behind Reg a wuffed. Don Ilario froze at the sight of him. Reg leaned in. Everything okay? Fine, Don Ilario said quickly. Perfectly fine. Just a large dog. Very large and very black. Bombay wagged his tail. Don Ilario, Rafa said, lowering his voice. We don't want any trouble. One of the young men, Mateo, was found dead last night. The healer's eyes snapped to him, wide and horrified. Rafa continued. We thought his friends might be searching for him. Maybe they came back to you. Maybe not. But if you speak to them again, or they show up in your office... Don Ilario swallowed. Dios mío, he whispered. Mateo? He died? Yes, Rafa said. And his body is at the coroner's office. It would be a shame if he's left unclaimed. The air between them shifted. The healer looked away, First at the herb bundles, then toward the sea, then finally, inevitably, back to Bombay. If they ever call, I will let them know. Thank you, Rafa nodded. That's all what we're asking for. The group stepped away from the stall and drifted into the current of the market. Shannon looked at Rafa. Okay, did you just set off a cultural tripwire, or did I hallucinate that entire conversation? Rafa shrugged one shoulder. Grieving families always come to claim their dead, and they won't leave Mateo without proper rites, especially not after what he tried to do. He patted Bombay on the head, and Bombay stepped in front of him in the right moment. Sometimes I think he understands everything that we talk about, Reg laughed. So Ilario tells them. They go to the coroner's office and we… What? Race them there? Hide in the morgue? Set a trap? Lucian asked. We asked Crane to stall them. Lucian let out a muffled laugh. I wouldn't rely on that. Chapter 11. Rafa pulled out his phone and dialed. The call connected after 2 rings. Crane, the coroner barked. Hey, it's Rafa Cardenas, Rafa said. Sorry to bother. Oh, good. The brand new PI. Just what my morning needed. Crane rustled something loudly. What do you want? I sent my report on the museum guy to Lucian. Rafa winced. We think his relatives might show up asking about his body. Could you please… stall them? Crane went silent for a beat. Cardenas, is it? He said tightly. I have 3 autopsies, a missing toe, and a family demanding I release an uncle who is very much not theirs. I do not have time for your shenanigans. Rafa started to apologize, but Crane cut him off. However, he added grudgingly, I want an unclaimed body in my morgue even less. A sigh. Fine. I'll stall them. But since you're new, let me be clear about my rate. Your rate? Rafa echoed. 1 good tres leches cake, Crane said. From Darla's bakery, not the supermarket. I'm not a savage. Rafa stared at the phone. You're joking, right? Reg, Lucien, Shannon, and Alex chorused behind him. No. Rafa swiped a hand down his face. Okay, fine. Cake. Thank you, Elliot. He hung up, pocketed his phone, and looked at the group. He really meant the cake thing? Reg nodded. He absolutely did. Shannon hooked her arm through Alex's. Come on. Let's get to Darla's before she runs out of tres leches. Does he accept bribes in all kinds of cakes? Rafa asked. Only tres leches and only from Darla's, Alex said. Mendoza racked up a pretty big discount. Rafa shook his head, trying to process this new reality. So, in the middle of a murder investigation, Angie's most pressing tactical maneuver is securing baked goods. If we need the autopsy report ASAP, then yes. Lucien shrugged. This island will never cease to surprise me. Rafa's phone rang before they even reached the bakery. Crane didn't bother with hello. Get here. Now, he whispered. Rafa pressed the phone harder to his ear. Crane? They're here, Crane snapped. All 4. They walked in 10 minutes ago asking about Mateo. I've already given them 2 disclosure waivers, an affidavit of identification, and a release request that isn't even for this country, and they're still sitting there looking at me like I'm speaking Mandarin. I just handed the tallest one a blank requisition form for industrial bleach and told him it was a mandatory post-mortem customs declaration. He's trying to fill it out, but he's getting suspicious. Rafa mouthed they came already to the group. Reg swore under his breath. Crane continued, exasperated. I can stall them another 10 minutes if I invent a toxicology delay, but that's it. I am running out of plausible bureaucracy, Cardenas. We haven't even got your cake, Rafa said. You'll owe me one, Crane hissed. I'm a great coroner, but I am not a trained receptionist, and I don't like crowds. He hung up. Rafa lowered the phone. Don Ilario must have called right after we left. Shannon gaped. That was like 5 minutes ago. He must have world record dialing speed, Gary said. Reg lengthened his stride. We gotta move. Crane can handle many things, but emotional triage with strangers is not one of them. They cut across the narrow walkway by the clinic, dodged a pair of orderlies carrying boxed supplies, Gary nearly taking out a cart of linens in his haste, then hurried down the ramp toward the squat, faded building that housed the coroner's office. Crane's van was parked on the side. As they reached the door, they heard Crane's voice from inside, sharp, frazzled, and dangerously close to losing its patience. "No, you cannot go back there. No, that is not how this works. Please stop touching the stapler. Leave the stapler. Senor, the stapler is not part of the paperwork." Rafa pushed open the door. The waiting room, barely large enough for 4 chairs, a dying ficus, and a counter, felt very small. The 4 Peruvians sat tense and restless, shirts rumpled, eyes darting between Crane's desk and the hallway leading to the examination room. Bombay trotted in first. The reaction was instant. All 4 jumped to their feet, chairs scraping backward, one knocking over completely, their faces blanched with sheer terror. One man pressed his back to the wall. Another whispered something that sounded like a prayer. A third raised trembling hands as if warding off a spirit. The 4th simply stared at Bombay, eyes wide, lips barely moving. "El perro negro." The room vibrated with dread. The dying ficus seemed to wither a little more under the sheer weight of their collective panic. Crane stared between the frozen men and Bombay, utterly bewildered, holding a stack of papers half a foot thick. Bombay stopped mid-trot, confused by the sudden panic, and whined. Rafa stepped quickly in front of Bombay, lifting his hands in a placating gesture. "He's not a guide to the afterlife, he's just a regular dog." Reg grabbed Bombay by the collar. "No need to panic, I'm going to take him away." As soon as Reg and Bombay left, Rafa made a step closer. "Please, can we talk?" Chapter 12. The tallest of the 4 Peruvians swallowed hard, eyes flicking from Rafa to the door where Bombay had vanished. He whispered something in Quechua, quiet, rhythmic, like reciting an old verse. Rafa heard one word clearly. "Herka," the guide. He exhaled. "The dog won't come back in unless we call him." That got their attention, their shoulders eased by an inch. Lucien leaned against the counter, keeping a respectful distance. Shannon and Alex moved to the side. Crane stayed frozen behind his desk, holding his towering stack of unnecessary paperwork like a shield. Rafa spoke softly. "Tell us what happened, please. Why did you come to San Malvino?" For a moment, no one moved. Then the man closest to him, maybe in his late 40s, weathered with a lined face, took a breath and spoke. "We are the last," he said with a thick accent. "Our village. Every year we are fewer. Children leave, elders die. Our stories disappear with them." Another man nodded, fists clenched over his knees. "We grow small. Soon there will be no one left." Rafa nodded, letting them speak. The first man continued, voice cracking. "Our elders told us of Aramu Muru, a portal in the mountains, a place where our ancestors speak, but it can only be opened with the Inti Kayu, the sun key." He gestured faintly. "A stone disc carved before the empire, taken long ago, displayed far from home." The second man added, "The sun key is usually kept at Museo Larco. Impossible to reach. Guards everywhere, cameras. And they know of us. They would stop us." Rafa leaned in just a little. "So you came here?" The third man let out a hollow sound, half laugh, half sigh. "We heard the artifacts would come to a small island museum, quiet, far from Lima. We thought," his voice faltered, "we thought maybe this was a chance to open the portal, to ask the ancestors how to save our people." Gary whispered, "Oh." But the Peruvians weren't finished. "We found Don Hilario. He's one of us. He said that there's no security here like in Lima, that the museum just got a fresh coat of paint." "When Mateo entered the museum," the first man continued, "he carried our hope. If the gods blessed him, the sun key would reveal the path." Rafa inhaled through his nose. "And did you think," he asked softly, "about the people who work there? The curator? The guards? The museum's reputation? This whole island? What would happen to all of them if Mateo succeeded? The 4 men bowed their heads. "We did not think beyond our mission," one murmured. "We see that now." Another looked up, eyes shining with guilt. "When we did not hear from Mateo, we were afraid. We thought he was caught by police. Then Don Hilario called us. He said people came to him with a black dog and told him Mateo was dead." He shuddered. "We knew then," he whispered, "that the gods were angry, that Mateo was taken because we sinned." Rafa's heart tightened. He shook his head gently. No, listen to me. What happened to Mateo wasn't punishment. It wasn't gods or spirits or anything supernatural." They looked at him, grief tangled with superstition. "Mateo tried to enter the museum through the ventilation system. It was newly renovated, small, dangerous. The got stuck. He let that sink in. It was an accident, a terrible one, but nothing more." Silence. The tallest man exhaled slowly, a sound full of centuries. "Our faith made us blind." Shannon's gaze softened. "That's how faith works sometimes." "Did you come to arrest us?" Lucian shook his head. "For what? You did nothing wrong." Rafa picked up the thread. "You're not in danger. You're not being arrested. The police will help arrange Mateo's transport home. You'll be able to perform your rites." The youngest of the group, barely 30, cheeks still round with youth, pressed a hand to his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. "Once his body is released to us, we will leave. We will go back to the mountains. And then we will vanish as our ancestors did." That last sentence hit the room. Rafa sat back, studying them. 4 men carrying a dying culture on their backs and believing disappearance was the only dignified option left to them. He shook his head. "No," he said, "you don't have to disappear." They stared at him. "You came here to open a door. Maybe not the right one, maybe not in the right way, but your purpose wasn't wrong." He leaned forward. "Your people are fading because the world doesn't know you exist. So speak. Teach. Tell your story before someone else tells it wrong." The tallest man blinked hard. Rafa continued. "San Malvino isn't just a tourist island. It's a place where people from all over the world with different cultures live in peace. I'm new here too, but from what I've seen, there are plenty of people here who would want to listen to your stories." Lucien nodded. "Our museum curator, Otto, he's practically vibrating with excitement every time someone even mentions the phrase authentic cultural representation." That earned the faintest ghost of a smile from one of the Peruvians. Rafa nodded. "I'm sure he would love to meet you and adjust the opening ceremony." Everyone let out a sigh of relief. At that moment, Crane cleared his throat loudly from behind the counter. "Well," he muttered, riffling through papers, "that was very moving, inspiring even. Now can you please finish the paperwork and get out of here?" The San Malvino Historical Museum had never seen so many people at once. Reporters clustered on the front steps, their cameras aimed at the red ribbon stretched across the entrance. The morning sun glinted off every lens. Reg elbowed Lucien lightly. "When's the last time you saw Mendoza voluntarily wear the parade uniform?" Lucien, stiff in his own pressed blues, muttered, "Voluntary? Never. Involuntary. During the bake-off last fall." Mendoza, standing 3 feet ahead of them, didn't turn around. "I heard that. Fix your collar, Officer Carter." Lucien snapped it straight immediately. Bombay sat between Reg and Alex, wearing a brand-new red bandana Shannon insisted matched the ceremonial theme. He seemed pleased with the attention, tail sweeping the floor every time someone pointed and whispered, "Look, what a cute dog!" Inside the museum's entryway, Otto stood with the 4 Peruvians. He looked paler than usual and kept adjusting his glasses with trembling hands, but his eyes were bright. A museum volunteer handed him the microphone. Otto inhaled, straightened, and stepped forward. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice carrying surprisingly well. "Today, San Malvino opens its doors to an exhibition that spans centuries, continents, and lives. The Incan civilization gave the world knowledge, craftsmanship, astronomy, and stories that continue to shape us. Several camera shutters clicked. Otto turned slightly, gesturing toward the 4 men beside him. But for too long, those stories were told about people, not with them. Today, for the first time, San Malvino has the honor of welcoming direct descendants of the Incan line, here to share their heritage firsthand. The crowd leaned in. Even the reporters quieted. Otto continued, voice steadier. These artifacts traveled a long way, but the people standing beside them traveled farther. Their presence here today reminds us that history is not a relic. It is living, breathing, and deserving of respect. Alex squeezed Reggie's hand, eyes shining. Shannon blinked rapidly, pretending she wasn't emotional. Otto glanced toward the police line. And before we cut the ribbon, San Malvino must offer a special thanks to the individuals who made today possible, the whole San Malvino Police Department and, he paused as if bracing himself, our island's new private investigator, Rafael Cardenas. Every camera pivoted at once. Rafa, standing halfway down the side steps, froze like someone had caught him stealing pastries. Gary clapped him on the back so hard he stumbled. Mendoza stepped closer to him, her parade boots clicking. Congratulations, you're famous, now try dealing with that. Rafa quickly rolled his eyes at her, then kept smiling at the cameras. Otto went on. Their collaboration ensured that this exhibition could proceed safely, respectfully, and with fuller truth. San Malvino is grateful. The crowd applauded. A few tourists whistled. Bombay barked twice, tail thumping against Reg's leg. The volunteers brought out the big scissors. Otto offered them to the Peruvians. They hesitated only a heartbeat before stepping forward together. 4 hands held the scissors and cut the ribbon clean. The crowd erupted in cheers. Mendoza leaned toward Rafa again. You handled that well. I didn't do anything, Rafa said. Just listened. That's more than most people bother to do. Inside, museum staff began guiding visitors toward the exhibit halls. Otto ushered the Peruvians in front of him as the guests of honor. It's beautiful, isn't it? Shannon whispered to Alex's ear. Yeah, it really is. Chapter 13. By the time evening settled over Isla Lirio, the porch lights were already glowing, casting soft halos across Reg and Alex's little stretch of garden. Bombay snored under the table, belly up, paws twitching like he was chasing ghosts through someone else's ventilation system. Alex poured freshly made mojito into mismatched glasses, while Shannon scrolled through her phone, cackling every so often at something none of them could see. Gary had claimed his usual chair, leaning back dangerously far while insisting this time, he wouldn't fall. Reg didn't bother arguing. He just put a foot out to catch him when he inevitably tipped. Lucian and Mendoza arrived last. Don't you two look tired? Reg called. Mendoza stepped into the porch light, parade uniform jacket slung over her arm, hair escaping the bun she'd forced it into hours ago. We managed to get a direct flight for the Peruvians, she said. No routing Mateo's body through Canada. They're leaving at dawn. That's good, Alex said. They'll be home sooner. Lucien collapsed into a chair. And Otto has not let them breathe since the ceremony ended. Poor guys. He's asked them approximately 7,000 questions. I think at one point he started taking notes while walking. He's enthusiastic, Shannon said diplomatically. He's relentless, Mendoza corrected. I actually told him to go drink water because he was turning red from excitement. Alex smiled. He did raise the bar for the rest of the world today. Oh, more than raised it, Shannon chimed in, eyes bright as she held up her phone. The opening ceremony went viral. We're everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, even some travel bloggers, top 10 unexpected cultural moments. People are tagging San Malvino nonstop. Reg groaned into his drink. Great, more tourists. Oh, stop, Alex nudged him. You love our island. I love it in private, he said, preferably without someone live-streaming my grocery run. Lucian chuckled. Well, I wouldn't count on quiet and privacy anytime soon. Otto invited the Peruvians to come back and stay for as long as the exhibition is open. If they say yes, The island's going to be booming for the next 3 months. Oh, come on, Reg groaned. Mendoza took the mojito Alex passed her and finally sat. All right, she said, turning toward Rafa, who had been characteristically quiet in his corner of the table. So, first real case as a private investigator. How'd it feel? Rafa looked like he'd been caught mid-thought. Honestly, he rubbed the back of his neck, I would never have guessed in a million years that my first case would be that layered. I thought I'd be chasing cheating spouses or looking for missing cats, not unraveling a cultural mystery involving sacred artifacts and secret descendants. You did good, Reg said simply. Rafa smiled at that. Thanks. And my phone hasn't stopped ringing since morning. Lucien raised a brow. Clients? Potential clients, Rafa corrected. Some of them legitimate, some of them questionable. One woman wants me to investigate why her neighbor's mango tree is dropping fruit only on her side of the fence. Shannon snorted mojito up her nose. Mendoza smirked. Welcome to private investigating on an island. You'll be begged to solve very dumb mysteries all the time. It's a good sign, Alex said. Means people trust you already. Or they saw the museum speech, Shannon teased. Rafa groaned. Please don't remind me. Oh, I'll remind you, Shannon said, tapping her phone, because I have something important to share. She cleared her throat. Congratulations, Rafael Cardenas. You've made the list. Rafa blinked. What list? The top 10 hottest bachelors of San Malvino, Shannon announced dramatically. Published by Marissa. She's a local lifestyle influencer. A very big deal. Gary perked up, scandalized. Wait. How come I'm never included in those lists? Rafa's cute, Polly squeaked and landed on Rafa's head. Rafa, red to the ears, muttered, I'm never leaving home again. Shannon waved her phone. Oh, don't be dramatic. It just means the island has accepted you. Or objectified me, Rafa muttered. Same thing here, Lucien deadpanned. Gary pointed at Rafa. Seriously, though, how did you get on the list? And why am I never on those lists? I mean, come on. I'm extremely list-worthy. Rafa let out a helpless laugh. Don't worry, buddy. You'll be my sidekick. This has been Death by Borrowed Gods, a hilarious, feel-good, cozy mystery, Book 23 in the Island Whodunit series, written by Tess Marlowe.
Thank you for listening to Death by Borrowed Gods. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next mystery. See you on San Malvino.